What's up, Dragon Brood? Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Well, I say that kind of the same from a few days ago. So remember when we put up that Mardu list? That was actually pretty cool. That was a sweet build. But then I had multiple people asking, one, for more Mardu lists, and then I also had people asking me to try to squeeze other cards into the list. But then it got a little bit weird. But then I decided, you know what if I take these cards people have been requesting I play with, and then I put them into a Mardu list? And then I have a friend of mine, Justin Gleason, who actually was playing some Mardu stuff. So he had a list, and I said, okay, well, let's play in a couple of those cards. So what if I take an amalgamation of his list and my list, and then you now get to have what I'm going to put before you. And it's pretty sweet. It's a lot of fun, and it uses some new fan favorite cards. So this is probably going to be one that speaks to quite a few people. So I'm excited about it. Let's get into it. Now, one of the key cards in this list is actually going to be Fight as One. And this is a card that I think outside really of the Magecraft list recently, you really aren't seeing too much of this card, which is very sad because the card's very, very good. And it seems to have been one of the underplayed cards from Ikoria. By the way, it has really sweet art too. I would love to see this art on just a ton of other things, but very cool. Then we're playing Valky, God of Lies. This is a card I had in the previous Mardu list, and I really like it here as well. Like early on, if nothing else, it almost functioned as like a pseudo discard card, but it could also get you a quality creature, while later in the game also just being a damn good card as being able to be cast as Tybalt and being able to remove your opponent's stuff or just get you extra spells to try to close out the game. Now, Humiliate is one of the two spells that actually allows us to win this game. You know, like the discard portion, not even just the fact that it's a discard, but also getting a 1/1, getting to pick the card from your opponent. Like there's a lot of elements about this card that are very good. And when you're talking about matchups like Sultai Ultimatum and things like that, you very much have to have disruption to allow yourself to get there. Now, Killian, this is one of the fan favorite cards people saw on my list and said, well, I want to see more Killian, and what other stuff can you do with it, or what other cards decks do you have with it? Well, truthfully, I didn't have many more, so this was a chance to build another deck that did play Killian and maybe take advantage of it a little bit more than my previous list did. But it is a lifelink creature, which is nice. It's Menace, which is nice, and occasionally does make stuff cost cheaper if it's targeting a creature. Then Vanishing Verse. Vanishing Verse is really one of those cards that it's either like when it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it feels awful. But it's flexible enough that we're still going to play it here, and we'll just play through these games and see how we feel about it. And, we'll talk about that on the other side of the games. Then, remember we were talking about disruption? Well, Elite Spellbinder does just that, right? If you can push your opponent's cards off a turn or two longer to be able to cast one of their big sweepers or a spot removal, or even some big creature that you may have trouble dealing with, like, it's great. And this card happens to fly. It's a 3/1 flyer for 3 with a great upside. So, again, I said this before recently, but if you are not playing Elite Spellbinder, you are doing yourself a major disservice. Play it. The card is good. Don't talk yourself out of it. Just play with it a few times, and then you'll understand. Sedgemoor Witch. This is the other fan favorite card lots of people asked about, because we've been seeing a lot in Witherbloom type decks, but kind of what other applications can we have for it? I said, well, we have this list that has a bunch of different spells going alongside our creatures that can get you some extra 1/1s. And the thing is here, we're not using the 1/1s as being this big over the top like component of the deck. It's just incremental. Like, can we get 1 or 2 extra blockers that also happen to gain life, right? Can we get just a couple of extra attackers that slip through? Like, there's a lot of things here that this could do for us in this list, not to mention that the card also has Menace. So between that and Killian, you already have a couple of creatures your opponent are going to have a hard time dealing with. Bone Crusher Giant, well, we all know Bone Crusher's good. I mean, the Stomp is fantastic, so not a lot to say there. Now, Baleful Mastery, this actually gives us a really interesting removal card, especially with Killian on the battlefield, because now you can play it for 2 and you don't give up that downside. And it does exile something. That's the other big thing here, and it can exile Planeswalkers as well. So a lot of flexibility in these removal cards that we're playing here. Then we have 2 Extus. Extus is good anyway because it lets you get back Bone Crusher, reuse the Sedge Witch, so you can just kind of keep your threats coming, which is really nice. But if you have to, you have that late game Awaken the Avatar, or the Blood Avatar, and you know, that can just finish the game on its own. It's almost always 6 damage coming across, cost your opponent to sacrifice a creature. Lots of things going on here, and Extus, even on the front side, is double strike, so you can close the game with that pretty well. And we're playing some commands here, so we're playing 1 Silver Quill command because if you have a Killian out, this is actually really good for just 2 mana, right? You can give something 3/3 and flying. Usually you're going to be able to return a creature, but honestly, you're just going to be returning a Valky or a Killian, so you're not going to use that too often in this list. But maybe, you know, depending on if you need to just punch damage through or get something out of the opponent's hand. But being able to draw a card and lose life is excellent, and having the opponent sacrifice a creature is excellent. Remember though, you only get the discount on Killian if you actually target a creature for +3/+3. So the other thing you get to pick from the other 3. And then we have Lorehold command. This card looks a little out of place, but honestly, again, if you think about it, if you have a Killian, then you have a Lorehold command, this is pretty strong. I mean, it is possible that you could turn 2 Killian, turn 3 Lorehold command, and that would allow you to remove your opponent's creature and also make a 3/2, which could be pretty significant on turn 2. So lots of weird things this allows. Also can give your creatures indestructible late game, give them all +1/+1, which is awesome. Sacrificing a thing to draw 2 cards, I use that quite often with Lorehold command. So this card is very flexible and works perfectly in this type of list. As for the mana, we're playing 4 plains, 1 castle, Locthwain, 3 swamp, 1 mountain, 4 of each of the pathways, and 3 Savai Triomes. So nothing too fancy there. It'll get the job done. Now, as always, catch me on the other side of the games on the back end of the video, because we do kind of review the games and talk about what we would do to update this list. And additionally, we do have a card spotlight at the end of every gameplay video where we just give you some fun tips about something out there in the Magicverse that could help you out in some way. Okay, y'all, this is going to be a little weird. I had some audio issues and I, for some reason, lost the track of myself kind of commentating over the games like normal. So I'm actually going to be recording myself over my recording from previous. So you'll still get the commentary over the gameplay. It still has all the normal gameplay sounds and everything, but for whatever reason, my audio track got lost in the transition. So I'm hoping this isn't totally weird, but we're going to go with it and see what happens. So if this is an awkward experience, let me know in the comments. I'm up late just trying to save this for y'all as best I can. So let's hop into the games here and let's start this rolling. Okay, here in this hand, we decided we're going to go ahead and keep it here, mostly because we can we can kill a couple of things over the first couple of turns. And with my opponent playing Zerta, I don't really know what they're doing. Though I have to admit, my opponent's name is Zombie King, and the fact that they're not playing some kind of zombies has me very disappointed here. Okay. So is this some type of Zerta cycling deck? I don't think that's the case here. But if they're cycling and they're not playing zombies, ugh, what a disappointment. Alright, so Elite Spellbinder, since we really didn't have anything else to do. No other spells that matter here. And this is where I'm kind of like, yo, like, I'm curious what the opponent's deck's doing now. You got Dual Strikes, Kazul's Fury. I'm like, what is this? Like, because now I'm a little bit concerned, truthfully. I remember just thinking, like, wait a minute, what do I even take here? And my thought was, I guess I just take the Kazul's Fury, because then if they get something big enough, I don't have to worry about it, because I'm not going to be able to respond to Kazul's Fury, like, when it goes off. So yeah, that's what I ended up taking. The rest are, like, annoyances, but I felt like I could survive it since I already have a Fight as one in hand. Yeah, I knew no matter what, the Spellbinder was going to die. Now it's just, okay, we're going to set up an Extus to die next turn. Then the following turn, we could protect an Extus if we get a land. But we're giving ourselves 2 turns to find one, and there's one there. So we handle the hard part right off the top of the library. I really love that animation there on the Extus. But here, this is where, like, you kind of give your opponent false hope in a weird way. That you're setting up a situation that you know your opponent's going to spend a lot of resources here, right? They're going to spend 3 mana, they're going to spend 2 cards. just to kill Extus when we have another one back up. Alright, so far everything's kind of gone according to plan through this turn. Then we go ahead and play the Extus. We'll leave 1 mana open. Leaves us fight as 1. We get to see that sweet animation again. And here was just me sort of just checking, like, okay, we can go ahead and get a card out of the yard with the fight as 1. So we actually get to get pretty far ahead here. Alright, so the fact that they're setting up a dual a dual striker, it's like, okay. They did find another situation here. Well, we already knew because they had the other one tucked away. So we knew we were going to have to use this fight as 1. Now it just matters as long as they don't have, like, miscast or unsubstantiate or something. Or Insubstantiate cost 2. So yeah, miscast would have been the only real thing, unless they were playing an unsummon. But this protects our Extus. And we got a Spellbinder back. So now next turn looks really good, right? Because now we can Spellbinder plus Humiliate. And we pick up a Sedge Witch as a bonus, so that's nice. The problem here, though, is that now that we see what we're up against, this like experimental overload or whatever, and the opponent being light on actual permanents, this Vanishing Verse is actually kind of a dud. Yeah, we're just gonna put the counter on Extus so we can go ahead and just keep attacking for 3. And then 6 because it double strikes. Alright, they're gonna dual cast to set up something here. Ah, yes, they found a Blitz of the Thunder Raptor for 8, mind you, so that's a lot. So all those cards they wasted came in handy there. The other good news here is we don't really have to worry about the experimental overload yet. It's still a little ways off. They need at least 2 lands, and they'd have to rip them off the top here. They go ahead and put Zerda in hand, which Vanishing Verse doesn't kill Zerda, but we find a Humiliate, so we can take that Zerda right out of their hand. Yeah, we don't care about Cathartic Reunion because they got to get a couple of cards in hand to even use it. And that has the opponent in a bad spot, right? Because if they want to use Cathartic Reunion, they have to not play land even if they draw them. But they need the land, obviously, or they're never going to play the Experimental Overload. So we kind of have them in a situation where the Cathartic Reunion is just stranded. Yeah, now this is pretty sweet because we have a Bone Crusher, so we attack for 5. We can Bone Crush the opponent here. Bone Crush. Stomp. And that makes a token. And then I'm kind of like just assessing what to do here. You know, there's nothing really to do with the Vanishing Verse because the only thing we can hit is our own Sedge Witch, and that's pretty terrible. But the opponent's at 3, and now they just are dead. They got nothing. Yeah, you play the Experimental Overload, but it doesn't do anything. And on to the next one. This one was a pretty hard keep, but if we could find another red land would be okay. Because our opener is like, we're going to have to play those on the Needle Verge pathway on white. But it turns out we draw a swamp, and that makes the whole hand that much better. You know, and here in hindsight, I feel like I could have went ahead and played Killian. Now, granted, Killian would have got caught by a glass casket, but it very much felt like had we played Killian, it would have been okay. I didn't really feel like it would have been too dangerous to play the Killian here. And what's funny is this is one of the test games I think I played in the play queue. I think I have these games out of order. And the amusing thing here is that this is probably the worst deck we went up against. And it was such a struggle because of Stonecoil Serpents, which is so hilarious to me. Because we can't block Stonecoil Serpents with the pest tokens we make. We can't hit it with Vanishing Verse. We can't block it with Killians. Like, we can't do anything. Like, it's really, really rough. Yeah, even here, it's like, well, we could block one, I guess, and I would trade. And it's not even a great situation, but if you get the opportunity to block and kill one with this deck, you almost have to Just take like the best situation that's presented to you. Even taking a couple points of trample damage isn't that bad, considering the upside of just getting it off the table when the majority of your deck doesn't deal with it. And then sadly they found another glass casket, so that makes our life very much a nuisance. But we are able to use Vanishing Verse to remove a glass casket if we want to set that up as a future play. There comes the Sedgemoor Witch, which again can block a Stone Cold Serpent if we have to. They're going to cycle a Wilt. Wilt still gets a little bit of love just because it cycles. And the opponent's going to do what here? Yeah, at this point, I'm just thinking, like, this game has to be on, like, a very short window before it's going to end up over. Yeah, this is where it really got bad. Once they played the Inscription of Abundance, give the creature +2, gain some life, shoot our creature. Now it's like, okay, now I got to get past a 6 or 5 toughness. And that's just so much to overcome when you can't really put anything in its way. So here we're just debating, like, what really should I be playing, right? Do I need to be focusing on getting the Bone Crusher out, but it's still not enough by itself? Do I want to get Killian out and at least give me a chance to gain some life? I mean, just kind of a sad situation all the way around, really. Now, I actually thought about playing the Bone Crusher next to the Killian and just see if the opponent forgets that their serpents are protection for multicolor. Now, it's not generally the way you want to win, but it's like if you can get an opponent caught making a bad play, then it's like sometimes you just let them walk themselves into the bad play. And now the opponent has, what is that, 6 mana? So they have the ability to play the Stoneforge Mist, or not Stoneforge, Stonecoil Serpent that was pulled by the Spellbinder. So this actually makes it to where they could spend 6 mana and make a 4/4. And then a 4/4 and a 9/9 trample that are both protection for multicolors, where we just get really caught up in a bad spot. Maybe we can get like Baleful Mastery or something. Yeah, and here I was just like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do this. We'll rescue the Spellbinder. So maybe we could do something here. And I think there I attempted to cast Stomp, but you can't use Stomp for cheap due to the Killian reduction because I'm not targeting a creature with it. Alright. Yeah, and then again, Vanishing Verse does nothing to a Stonecoil Serpent, so that card's kind of worthless. Yeah, and here there's just no good situation. I mean, we're kind of hoping they would block, and then we'd give up the Bone Crusher Giant to try to kill it. Or at least use the Stomp. And we just give up the Spellbinder. But here I'm just kind of like, you know what? I need to just play this as a creature. So if we need to block, we can block. You know, at least I can block the 4/4. You know, we're not dead. Now, if the opponent would have drawn a removal card here, I still would have been dead. But we'd at least give ourselves a reasonable play. Yeah, and here I'm just like, okay, let me just give the good game. And I clicked good game before the opponent cycled. And I was like, oh no, I thought they were actually playing a thing that was just going to kill my Bone Crusher. And then I gave the oops, but it wasn't like to them, it was oops to myself. This is why I don't ever use emotes. I don't ever get it right. Yeah, here we'll just block, put ourselves down to 4. We don't have nearly enough to kill the opponent, even if we wanted to. We don't have enough mana to play Tybalt, which still would be able to do that to a Stonecoil Serpent. Yeah, and here it really is just good game. We can't do anything there. the trample damage gets us. Okay, this one's a bit more interesting because we can just play our lands on black and whites. However, though, here we pick up the opportunity to just have all our 3 colors of mana on turn 3. So we like that. And this also works out where I was like, okay, cool. I'll just play a turn 2 Valky, and then if the opponent removes it, they remove it. We have a backup one anyway. Alright. They're going to kill it with a stomp. Still doesn't mean we don't want to see what's in the opponent's hand. So there's Galazeth, Prismari, 2 of them. Disdainful Stroke, a Goldspan Dragon, and a Brazen Borrower. And here I almost wanted to play the Survive Triumph, but then I was like, well, maybe I don't. And it's like, well, if I do, I still have the mana to play Valkyries. That's cool. We know what cards are in the opponent's hand already. So unless they found a removal card here, you know, and it's like, okay, they're going to use the Brazen Borrower. Fine. They just went ahead and foretold something, and this is good because it sort of gives us carte blanche to play whatever we want here, right? Like, we have the keys to the city at this point. Alright, we're just going to run out the Sedgemoor Witch and set up a later turn here. Because we do have stuff with Silverquill Command, we've got Vanishing Verse, we've got Baleful Mastery, so we're going to start getting to make some tokens if the Sedgemoor Witch lives even a turn. Alright, and we're slowly finding the mana. So this is kind of where you get in those rough spots where you have to start asking, like, is it worth it to play Valky here now that we're only a couple of lands away? And maybe we can just get Tybalt. Granted, it would still take a couple turns, but it's very doable. But let's see. I don't know. Alright, go ahead and play Valky. And that does leave mana up for like Vanishing Verse or something if we want. But we get control of the Goldspan Dragon, which is pretty awesome. Because we have the mana to turn this Valky into a dragon. And I am here for it. Alright, playing a Galazeth Prismari, which doesn't do anything to us, really. And I was debating what to do here, if we wanted to give the opponent a card, but then I was like, man, let's just wait. It's like, do we really need to give them a card? I don't feel like we do. But it does mean the opponent's going to untap with 6 mana, potentially a 7th mana. Not sure what the significance of that is, but a thing that they would have access to. Alright. Gonna turn this Valky into a 4/4 Goldspan Dragon. No shame. And can't block the Sedgemoor Witch because she has Menace. Okay, it was hard for me to figure out what way the opponent was going to want to go here on their turn, but then when they just passed, I was kind of like, huh? Like, okay, attack for 3. Alright, getting in there. And then the Bone Crusher, as expected. Alright, get this other pathway down on black. And then we have kind of a lot of things going on, right? Because we have the lower hold command. And here's what's funny. I was doing the math and I was kind of like, okay, if I attack, that's 7. We can give things +1/+1. That's 8, 9. Then I get to shoot the Bone Crusher Giant. That's kind of cool. And then, like, I was like, wait, why am I even doing that? My opponent's only at 10. Like, that's 3. That's 4. That makes 7. Plus 3 in hand is 10. And we have way more than enough mana. Brazen Borrower, sure. And this was I got a little excited because I'm like, hey, a reasonable thing we can attack or kill with the Vanishing Verse. Yeah, I almost used Baleful Mastery because like the mana doesn't really matter, but I was just like, man, let me use the thing that I'm gonna have trouble using later. All right. But yeah, this thing is where I realized, wait, if I just have them hit for 7, I'm gonna shoot them for 3. That should just be game. Barring some weird counter of some sort, obviously, right? Okay. Now this hand I liked a lot, right? You get to open with Savai Triome. You have any color combination you really need on 2, and then you're all set on 3. And we drew a Plains, which makes it even better. All right, and see now this is where it's frustrating, right? Because part of me wants to just run the Killian out there and then try to do like Killian Silver Quill command or Killian Lorehold command silliness. But at the same time, it's like because I drew Fight as 1 already, I can play Killian and then protect Killian on this following turn. Thanks to that Plains we drew a turn ago. Okay. We're going to shoot the opponent forward 2 with the Stomp. Alright. Now here, a lot of choices. But my gut says pretty much if you're ever trying to decide, you'll probably just go with the lead Spellbinder. Setting your opponent back could be very key. The thing is though, is just kind of decide, like if this is like a Golgari mid-range, this could end up being the right decision as we'll have to play around a lot of cards. I think we can still do it, but you know, a lot of cards. Okay, the Spellbinder sticks. And now the tough part is like, they don't have double black. They still need to find a land to do stuff. It's like, well, I guess you just take Cultivate here. Because Cultivate actually keeps your opponent from finding the colored mana they need or the quantities they need. And it forces them into a lot tougher situations because they're not going to be able to get the mana that they need. At least not easily. Alright, what you doing, opponent? Alright, so just eliminate to get rid of the Spellbinder, which we sort of knew was going to happen. I mean, do you just go with, yeah, I was going to say, did I just play the Bone Crusher Giant here? Because the only thing they could really do there is if they find the land for the Binding of the Old Gods. Because, I mean, otherwise, anything else doesn't make sense, really. Like, you're going to spend 4 mana. You're going to play Binding. You're not going to play the Bloodchief's Thirst. And you're not going to use the Murderous Rider's kill half, because then you just take 4 as opposed to 2, and that's silly. So here we end up using a Fight as 1 on a Bone Crusher Giant. Not really the thing we thought we were going to be doing, but we found a backup Fight as 1s, and I was like, wait a minute. Now we can play Killian and protect them both with a singular Fight as 1. Now this game's starting to look unlosable, which is never true. You could totally lose from this position. It's just starting to feel very good. All right. Another binding. And if I'm the opponent on the opposite side, you have to feel garbage with what's about to happen. Like, yeah, okay, I'll take another 2. And I don't even mind taking the damage because I'm going to gain some back here with Killian. So it's kind of irrelevant. And we have double Humiliate here. Like, this pretty much means the opponent's just not going to get to do anything. Or nothing that they want to. And we're going to make our creatures bigger. One of them has lifelink. They didn't draw the double black mana either. So those other deck has a bunch of good cards in it. It's mostly kill cards, and we made some of our stuff kill resistant. Sadly, we had to take the Shadows Verdict, because that'll just exile everything. We don't want that to happen. Not without us having a dragon or something. And then, yeah, you humiliate again, taking the Blood Chief's Thirst. And that's mostly so they have a harder time getting rid of Killian here. But I wasn't sure what I want to put the counter on here. I'd probably just put it on Killian and gamble. But put it on the Giant instead. And I think that's a fine initial decision. I just, in hindsight, think there are some merits for both cards. Okay. Yeah, Extinction Event only gets rid of one of these, which means it would be lethal a few different ways, no matter which one we kept. Because we can do Super Quill Command, we can shoot the opponent for 3. Excess is the only thing that wouldn't have been a winner. But yep, we're just going to give this Killian +3/+3. Play a land, then we're going to get our attack on. Exaxes for the win. Okay, we get to go first in this one. And we have all of our mana, so I don't, like, hate it, but I don't love it either. Mostly because I'm not doing anything early, and though Sedgemoor Witch will cost the opponent 3 damage, it is a little tough to want to just run that out there naked. Alright, so it's like, Luris, blue-black lands. I guess this is Rogues. Alright, so that's a good one. We got the Humiliate through. What do we want to take away from them? I think there's an argument to be made for Thought Thief, for End of the Story, and for Enforcer. I don't think the other 2 cards really come in to enough effect that you're worried about it. We ended up getting a Thought Thief, though, and in hindsight, it might have been the right answer to get rid of the Enforcer instead, just because I know they could have had a turn where it was like Enforcer plus Wind Robber, and that would have been pretty bad. Turns out, they, unfortunately for me, found a Ruin Crab right after I humiliate them to go with the Fable Passage, so that kind of sucks. So we're going to lose quite a few cards dealing with the Ruin Crabs here. Now here, we know the opponent has a Didn't Say Please, and it's a little unfortunate because I want to put this Needle Force pathway on red. That was the plan going into this, but it actually turns out we can't. We have to put it on white so we could double spell this turn. So we're going to cast Killian, and I'm thinking because of Menace, the opponent may not want us to have Killian, so this has to get the Didn't Say Please, right? And it does, and that was all part of the plan, because now that lets us use the Vanishing Burst to get rid of the Ruin Crab and get us an additional 1/1 creature. Okay. 17 for the opponent after all that work on both sides. And the totals are 17 to 20. Alright, they missed a land drop. Well, that happens to rogues because they play pretty land light, in my experience. And I don't even remember what I was hesitating for here. I think I was debating what color, what side to put it on. And here, I didn't play the other Sedgemoor Witch before attacking because I was kind of really just setting the opponent up and saying, okay, I'm not going to give any extra information if they decide to counter or not counter something. Yeah, we lose a token here. It's not a big deal. It's like, no, we don't lose a token. Because I have a human and a non-human to go with that fight as one. So I get a bonus damage, and we get to keep token alive. Or actually, token won't. Well, I guess it would live, but more importantly, we get to kill the enforcer. None of that happens anyway, though, because the opponent has a drown in the lock. But we now have double enforcer, and they both have menace. And it's not like the opponent plays a ton of creatures. Though they're going to raid some out right here with that Wind Robber. And Extus. Here we go. Now we're starting to assemble Voltron a little bit, right? All the key pieces coming together. And here I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to get an attack with everything. If they double or triple block, whatever. We'll just make sure we kill off the enforcers and go from there. Especially with us having an Extus, because then it means we could play Extus, get something back, and that's pretty awesome. And I thought about, oh, we could play the Avatar, maybe. Sack the token, opponent has to sacrifice a creature. Problem is, I don't have red mana. So, because remember, when I told you we had that one land we wanted to put on red, but we needed to be able to double spell, which was key, and we were right, it was. But Extus ends up not sticking and got countered by an Essence Scatter. Killian's alright though. Not great, but alright. Opponent's only at 10. Okay, opponent goes down to 6, and then there's Killian. Alright, end of the story, so Killian is going to stick. And now, this is kind of where you want your opponent, right? When they're tapping out for end of the stories, you know they're not going to have a ton of ammo left. So you're just coming for it. And if they target the Sedgemoor Witch here, fine, they'll take 3 if they want to kill it. Okay, what does the rest of this turn look like? Boom, into a Spellbinder, which again, one of the best cards. These type of situations are exactly why. Yet the opponent has another drown in the lock. Alright, well still, can't block the Sedgemoor Witch. Block the 1/1, great. Yeah, and there I was like, okay, you're going for another end of the story here. Unless you're just going to go land removal, but then you just lose 3. Well, those games kind of went how we expected, so that was actually really cool. Turns out, the nemesis for this deck, the way it's set up right now, is actually Stonecoil Serpent, of all cards. But that's actually okay. There's not a ton of Stonecoil Serpents running around, and if they do, you just have to kind of find ways to work around them. You do still have some creatures that can block them, and you do have stuff like Baleful Mastery, so it's not the worst. One thing I would consider, though, is do we need to be playing 3 Vanishing Verse? Should it be 1 and maybe 2 Heartless Acts, or 2 with 1 Heartless Act? And Heartless Act does still get the benefit of the discount from Killian as well, so that's something else to consider. And you don't have to have the monocolor requirement also, so something to consider there. As far as the lands, I think it actually worked out pretty well, except for maybe one game. But I think overall it was actually really good. The only thing I would consider maybe is cutting a Needle Verge pathway, the red-white one, and then possibly playing a full set of Survive Triomes. Since we don't really have anything on turn 1, drawing the Triomes early isn't bad, and it gives us something we can cycle late. But it also fixes the different color requirement on turn 3 and 4 if it comes up and could be a bit of complication. Now for today's card spotlight, we're going to talk about Savor the Moment, but not really necessarily about Savor the Moment itself, but more about all the cards that say take an extra turn. I mean, even when they aren't great, there's still things that are sought after. All of them seem to have some reasonable amount of value, And I don't know, maybe there's commander players out there just love playing these. I tend to hate those people, but you know, hey, to each their own. But in all seriousness, these are always popular. So if you see anything that mentions taking an extra turn, you should probably snag it because people are going to want to play them. And even on something like Savor the Moment, when you look at it, it even has a drawback for taking that extra turn. You don't even get like the full use of that second turn. It doesn't even matter. The card is still almost $20 regardless. So anytime you see those words on a card, just saying, if new ones come out, you may want to just stash a few of them, sock them away for the future, because it wouldn't be a bad call. Don't forget, if you want today's deck list, it will be down in the description below. You can also get links to my Discord if you want to come by, say hi, get help with the deck, or talk about Magic news. Or if you want to just come be part of one of my streams, either on Facebook Gaming or Twitch, you know, toss in your 2 cents, get play-by-play, maybe get to suggest a deck, who knows? Lots of things go on in our chats all the time. And don't forget, if you're shopping at Amazon or TCGPlayer, I do have the links in the description below. But if you go through those URLs, I'll get a small kickback and you'll be helping me and the channel out. And you don't have to spend anything else you weren't already going to spend. And then finally, if you've come this far, I super appreciate you. Those view counts and view times do matter. But please remember to like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Those really help out and get the channel in front of more people. It lets me know you appreciate what I'm doing, and most importantly, lets you know every single time I have a video up. But that's all I have for you for now. I'll see you next time.